Well, good morning, everyone. And welcome to day 2 of the conference. I hope that everyone who arrived yesterday got a good night's sleep and is feeling very refreshed and energized today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Melissa Golden. I am the president of the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program Alumni Association of Northern California and Nevada, or JETAANC. And we are the hosts for this year's JETAA USA National Conference. I'm also a graduate of the Middlebury Institute. I completed my degree in international education management a few years ago, and I can say that I have Miss to thank for my current job. I connected with the organization that I work for through one of my classes here, actually, through my coursework. And so I'm really happy now that as an alum, I'm able to stay connected with the Institute and work as a learning partner with my kohai who are in classes here now. Just making sure I'm on track here. So also, we're very thankful to the Middlebury Institute for helping us host this first NatCon since 2019. In person. They've been very generous with not only their space, but their expertise and their time. So we really couldn't have put this conference together without them. So thank you to everyone from the Middlebury Institute. And this conference would also not be possible without the support of the JET and JET and JETAA's supporters and collaborators, including the Council of Local Authorities for International Relations, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan, and of course, Miss. I would like to welcome Valerie Stewart and Adam Lisbon, our JETAA USA country representatives, to share their remarks.
Good morning, everyone. So welcome to the 2023 NatCon. We're so excited that you all made your way here, both online and in person, and we're grateful for the chance to share with you. We hope that you'll enjoy everything and learn a lot. So Adam.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep my remarks short, but if you look to your left or to your right, next to you are some of the most fantastic and wonderful and hardworking and creative people ever. And I know I'm a little bit biased, but I think we can thank Jill Stoffers for indicating to all of us just how great we are. So I'll take a bit of ego for that. So, but keep that in mind, especially now that we're finally all together again. So although our time is short, let's make the most of this. So thank you everybody for being here and coming all this way. We really appreciate it.
And we can't forget our dear colleague, Juliana Alfinito, who is online and supporting the virtual audience.
And now I would like to welcome Mitsuru Kitano from the CLAIR Tokyo Executive Advisor to come and share his remarks.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you very much. And I first would like to thank everybody who worked hard to make this wonderful gathering to happen. And the chapter of Northern California and Nevada, and country representative and USA country representatives. And also, I would very much like to thank Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Montreal. The name has been very much familiar for me for over 10 years, and I'm very much happy to be here in Montreal. And also, I would like to acknowledge and thank everybody who supported this amazing undertakings of all the activities of JET and Consul-General in San Francisco, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other ministries, and USJETAA. Although the terminology is rather complicated, I'm now in a learning process and to capturing and who is doing who. Yeah, but then I very much would like to thank everybody and who help and realize and this great project, and after so many years of difficulties. And I have a prepared statement, but then I would like to speak on my words. And because I wanted to introduce myself a little bit, and this is as introduced. My name is Mr. Kitano. I'm an executive and advisor to CLAIR headquarters in Tokyo, and I started that from February this year. This is the third time I'm involved for JET in my whole life. And I have been in Japan's foreign service for 43 years. And one of the things which I did from 2005 to 2008 was that I was a minister in charge of public diplomacy in the embassy in Washington, D.C. So you may understand that I was on the side of recruiting and sending out people and receiving the returnees. And that was the first occasion. The second occasion was up until December last year, I was ambassador to Ireland. And so since 2019 to 2022, and that might give you some idea. I suppose some of you had shared that, and it was not an easy period. And yes, and I think that I have to use both brakes and accelerators and how to manage the program. And it was a very difficult program, but people and concerned were very much committed to continue going JET program. But it was not easy. But I'm very much happy that we are coming to the normal. And the other thing which I would like to mention is that, I have several hats, and one of the hats I have is, I suppose you might remember, yesterday Paige talked about a lot of activities she's engaged with, and one of them is what is called CORCAN, and CORCAN is a United States-Japan Conference on Culture and Education Interchange, which is a body which was created at the time of Kennedy presidency in 1960s, and it still continues, and because everybody are concerned and committed that this area, education, exchange, and understanding, mutual understanding is very much important in the whole US-Japan relationship. And I'm delighted and to be honored to be one of the this family, and CORCAN established a working group which focuses on subnational diplomacy and local exchanges. I hope I'm right in using that. Yes, so I have been part of it, and the other day I had a chance to make a presentation and in that framework, and many people talk about the sister city relationship, and they talk about the Japan-U.S. and societies and language and studying abroad. I agree everything, but don't miss JET. That is that thing which I very much stressed. And from my standpoint, JET is great in several halls. JET is great while you are in Japan and you engage in language education, you help Japanese local authorities engage internationally. But what do you do after you go back from Japan? That is also great. And it is very much represented here, the activities you are doing here. And some of you are engaged in NPO, some of you do business, and some of you and consultancy and in various areas. And you have heard and in your bottom of the heart the importance of the ties between two countries. That is very much important. And so I'm very much happy what I'm doing at this moment and to be one of the members of CLAIR and try to support JET activities. And I very much hope the whole success of this meeting. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kitano. And now I would like to welcome Mr. Taichi Kaneshiro, who from the Embassy of Japan, and he is the Counselor of Education, and he will be joining us online.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this year's JETAA USA National Conference. My name is Taichi Kaneshiro, Education Counselor at the Embassy of Japan, and I'm honored to be speaking before you all today. but I'm really disappointed that I couldn't visit you. And I'm very impressed by the words of Mr. Kitano, who is very senpai for us. Firstly, I'd like to extend our appreciation to the 2023 JETAA USA NatCon Planning Committee, Barry Stewart, Adam Lisbon, and Juliana Alfinido, and US JETAA Executive Director, Jessica Livingstone, and this year's host chapter president, Melissa Golden. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to JET alumni everywhere and for planning 2023 NatCon. It is thanks to the efforts of JET alumni who helped with the national screening and selection process this year that we are able to safely send JETs from all over the country to Japan this past summer. The JET program is continually seeking best strategies for recruitment of strong applicants, and we hope you can offer your insight on how to achieve this goal. I have been at my post at the embassy for 2 years now, and I've had the opportunity to work closely with the JET program office on the selection and the training of new JET participants. Having personally seen the powerful impact JETs have had on school children and their local communities through my years at the Ministry of Education makes it short. It has been amazing to see the process through which these extraordinary candidates become JETs. The JET office in Washington, D.C. sent off 65 2023 DC JETs, and it was as heartwarming experience as ever. As we said goodbye to the JETs after the pre-departure orientation and reception, I once again felt the significance of the JET program. As in-person JET program events have made a comeback at the embassy, we have exciting plans for a number of receptions. In mid-September, we will be hosting a social event for recent JET returnees and participants of other Japanese government-sponsored programs, such as MEC Scholarship and Mansfield Fellowship Program and Fulbright Program, etc., at the ambassador's residence, as well as a welcome back reception for 2023 JET returnees later this year to build a strong relationship with new alumni. Despite the many challenges since 2020, I'm delighted to see JETAA USA continuing to gather like this, showing the true power and determination of the JET alumni. On behalf of myself, the JET program office in Washington, D.C., and the Japanese government, thank you for your continued support of the JET program. All of your passion and dedication are invaluable. I'm certain that in these next 3 days, you will build new relationships and find innovative ways to continue developing your chapters. I hope you enjoy the 2023 JETAA National Conference. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Kaneshiro-san. So I would also like to welcome Scott Polizzi, who is Associate Professor and Program Chair of the Masters of Public Administration, International Trade, International Policy and Development, and Joint MPA International Policy and Development Programs at the Middlebury Institute, and also a JET alum. So thank you, Scott.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the students, the staff and faculty of the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, which I'm going to refer to as MISS occasionally, we welcome you here to the campus. I'm very fortunate to not only be a JET alumni, but I also have very many students who are JET alumni. And we talk about the program a lot and what it means to us and what it means to our future and our careers. Yes. Sure. Okay. And I think about the program a lot, but I haven't always thought about it very systematically. So when I was asked to give some remarks today, I thought, let me think about what it means to me. And now I'm talking about 30 years ago, I was in the program, so it's been quite some time. It was a very important part of my life, that's for sure. And I remember arriving in this rural town in Kyushu with the beautiful terraced rice paddies, beautiful mountains, the squid boats with the big lights out on the sea. You know, and I thought it was amazing. It was beautiful, but I had a lot of concern, of course. You know, I'm going to live 1 or 2 years away, and when I arrived and I met my colleagues, I met the students, I met the parents. Like everything just washed away. It was just I just felt so good and so welcomed. And this kindness, it was just an act of collective kindness. I find that quite remarkable. But in the JET program, it was not unusual. Many of the other people who were part of the program had experienced the same thing, and I just think that's a fantastic point to make. So on the very first night of working, we went out to eat together, and you know, this squid was a very important part of the local economy, and they had amazingly fresh squid. You know, I'm an Italian American. I eat a lot of squid in my life, so I said, okay, yeah, fine, this is great. And you know, they have a very elaborate system, right? Like you take the squid out of the water, you put it in a hold in the boat, then that gets onto a truck, and that truck goes into a tank, and the tank then is in the restaurant. So the squid comes out, and it's still moving. So I said, okay, and I'm looking, and there are 35 people looking at me and saying, you know, this is my moment, right? So, so I eat it, and I'm chewing and chewing, and they're looking at me. So I swallow, and I just say, oishii desu ne. And then we became fast friends. They were slapping me on the back, pouring me drinks, or singing karaoke to the small hours of the morning. You know, the JET program was so great because it really helps you know a lot about yourself. You know, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things I take away from it. And I'm grateful for the structure of the program because it gives you space, you know, as a young professional to do that, you know, to really figure things out. It's safe, it's welcoming, and it's supportive. You know, it's a very, very good program from just a design perspective. So I can draw a through line through a lot of the things that I experienced as a JET teacher to what I'm doing now. So I think first of all, like learning language, how important that is and how important that is to culture. You know, when you look at the syntax of a Japanese sentence with the verb being at the end and the negation being the exact last syllable, like from an English speaker, this is a very different way of thinking. And, you know, a lot of nonverbal communication. So I think through my time there, I learned to be a better listener. My wife may disagree with you, but so that really introduced me to qualitative research, because that's basically what that is, right? You know, just observing and listening and really trying to understand and suspending judgment. I feel that's such an important part of travel. So I do qualitative research now. A lot of that comes from my time at JET. And I think I also appreciate the use of different cultures throughout maybe markers in one's life, you know, and different religions and how that gets incorporated into a syncretic aspect of Japanese culture. And that really showed me that there's new ways of learning and new ways of understanding. And just my way is one way, but there are many different ways. And understanding multiple truths and multiple interpretations really opened up my eyes to, again, you know, what I teach today. I'm going to use this word, we're on a college campus, but epistemology or epistemic justice. That's basically what I learned from that time there. And then I think, you know, the structure of the program itself, like I said, it's very safe. It's very supportive. You know, we learned about lesson studies. I became a better teacher in my time there. And, you know, that the reason that squid got on my plate in such a fresh way is because of this system that they have. So systems thinking is such a big part of how Japan works. I'm thinking of like just-in-time production and the Kanban and all of those aspects that I learned when I was also studying. And systems thinking is really embedded in Japanese culture, and to bring that forward into my teaching is really important. It really helps people analyze, and I work in international development, and systems are such a crucial part. And then I think finally, just the structure of things is it allows, you know, I said it learns about yourself, but I think the aspect of humility, because there's so much humor and self-effacing jokes that were in Japan, it really allowed for me to grow in a way. And again, my wife may disagree, but I think I've become a little bit more humble maybe in my time. And I think that makes me a slightly better person. So I'm just really grateful for that experience. And I really hope that more people can experience it. I really hope in my heart that I left something good. And I know I took away a lot from my experience there, but I hope that I opened up new ways of thinking to my students, and maybe inspire them for working internationally and for engaging globally. I think that's what we need to do nowadays. And that was true, in '92, and it's true here. And what year are we in? Thank you. So I hope this program continue, and I hope that this conference can contribute to strengthening and expanding and improving its outcomes. So again, thank you and welcome to the Institute, and I wish you all a great conference.
So thank you everyone for your kind remarks. We are also very grateful for the support of USJETAA and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA. Today's keynote and panel discussion were made possible through the USJETAA Sasakawa Chapter Grant Program, which funds JETAA chapters and subchapters so that they can host innovative activities that further US-Japan relations at the grassroots level. So with that, I'd like to welcome and give the floor to Jessica Livingston, Executive Director of USJETAA, and Shanti Shoji, Director of Programs at Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shanti Shoji, Director of Programs at Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA. So I'm here as a representative for the funding that we give for today's keynote and for the career panel, but I'm also a JET alum. So it's just, I'm very lucky that I have a job that I love to do, but I also have a job that gets to support JETs and the JET community. So it's really wonderful to be here in both of those capacities. Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA is a 501c3, a nonprofit, both a grant giving and a think tank in Washington, DC. And we're dedicated to deepening understanding of and strengthening ties between the US and Japan. We mainly focus on areas of security and diplomacy, and we do that through, various engagements. We do publications, dialogues, exchanges, and grassroots kind of funding such as this. And it's just really, I really want to thank JETAANC for putting this all together. It's been such a wonderful experience already. Our table at breakfast this morning was talking about learning about the history of the abalone and the impact that the Japanese in this area obviously had and still have today. And for Middlebury Institute for dedicating your space for us and providing it for us all together. And I think all of us know that after being virtually for so long, it's really nice to come together and have time away from our busy lives to just focus on this community and how we can support one another and continue to engage not just ourselves, but our communities and our local areas, and how we can take what we've learned from the JET experience and pass that along to others who maybe haven't traveled to Japan, and just share our overflowing abundance of love for Japan. But I also wanted to thank all of those who are here supporting, especially CLAIR, both Kitano-san from Tokyo, and we have CLAIR in New York here, who, it's very appreciative that we can continue to have supporting from CLAIR. So these JET activities can continue, because as you can see, there's a lot of good that can still come from the JETs that return from Japan, even decades after me as well. Return. And just want to make sure I don't forget any other and Consulate-General of Japan from San Francisco, also Kaneshiro-san from Embassy of Japan, and USJETAA, of course, Jessica. So that is all from me, and thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. It is absolutely delightful to see you all in person. So thank you all for being here. I want to say thank you to Valerie and to Adam and to Juliana and to Melissa. I was only in part of the planning meetings And there were a lot of planning meetings. They spent so much time pulling this together for you all. So I want to give them a big round of applause before we move forward. So many of you know that there is JETAA USA and there is USJETAA, and we will go into the why of that later on today. But we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are dedicated to supporting JET alumni and JET chapters. I'd like to point out that you can be a JET from anywhere from 1 to 5 years, but you are a JET alum for the rest of your life. That is a very long time. So the impact that we can have as JET alumni is quite huge. It's quite powerful. And USJETAA is an important piece of that because, and the JETAA community in general, you can come back from Japan from the JET program and you can wax poetic about Japan and you can love Japan passionately from your couch. That's great. But JETAA is the vehicle that allows you to actually engage in diplomacy and continue the work that you signed up to do when you left for the JET program. This is how you continue that. This is how you stay engaged. This is how you continue to make a difference. And so each one of your chapters and JETAA USA and USJETAA, we're all the support network to make that happen. So I want each of you to give yourselves a pat on the back. You're all volunteers. You spend a lot of time doing this. You are making a difference. And JETAA USA and USJETAA, we are here to help you. We are here to continue to support you so that you can continue to make that difference. It's one thing for governments to have their diplomatic missions and work together, but the grassroots activities is often the glue that really matters on the local level. So I want you all to know how important you are. I'm glad you are here. I'm glad we can support this. So keep that energy up, stay Genki, keep going. Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to hop back up. We're going to wait for the lighting to change on the stage. So we are very lucky. We have the chair of our board, Paige Cottingham-Streater, is here with us. She is, I think many of you know, but she is the reason there is a JETAA. So it's an honor to have her here. So she will be here along with Karen Kelley, who is also part of the USJETAA board. Karen is a retired senior foreign service diplomat. And the Osaka was your last position, right? So she was the Consul-General to Osaka. So they're going to be coming up onto the stage to have our keynote fireside chat. So I'd like you all to welcome Paige Cottingham-Streater and Karen Kelley to the stage.
How about now? No? How about now? Well, I would just use my jet voice and project. Oh, okay, sorry. But I know that we also have people online. So I want to say Melissa and Kitano-san and Matsuri-san and Scott and Kaneshiro, wherever you are. and Consul-General. It's really lovely to be here. I am Paige Cottingham-Streater. I introduced myself to some of you last night. I serve in my day job as the executive director of a federal agency, the Japan-U.S. Friendship Commission. It's a grant-making agency, and we support the U.S.-Japan relationship through institutional grants for organizations, including USJETAA, that support the U.S.-Japan relationship. I also serve as Secretary General of COLCON, which Kitano-san already mentioned and accurately described in terms of highlighting the importance of people-to-people exchange between the US and Japan. But perhaps my greatest honor is to serve as chair of USJETAA, along with a number of other really dedicated JET alum and other supporters of the JET program, including Kelley. We are doing our best to make sure that there are resources available and support available to the chapters and the individuals who see themselves as members of this JET community. And we're everywhere. I mentioned to some of you, I was just in San Jose and met somebody at a coffee shop who overheard my conversation talking about Taiko and said, "Were you on the JET program?" He said, "I was too." So you just never know where you'll run into JETs and the impact that the program has had on each of us. It's sort of, I love the way Scott described that thread. It is sometimes a direct shot between the work, our experience, but also the work that we do. And sometimes it's a little meandering, and that's all fine too. But one of the things that I love most about being a part of this community is the wonderful people who I get to meet and work with. And Kelley, who is to my right, is one of those people. And so it's really an honor to be on this stage with you. And thank you for making the trip and joining us in person. And we're missing the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
but otherwise, we've got this very cozy
Imagine the
setting.
fire.
There was a fire this morning at the hotel where
there
we're
was,
staying.
yeah.
So just keep that warm feeling here, but it'll be a warm, engaging conversation, I hope. But I guess first, I think it might be helpful for Karen and I to know who's in our audience. And I'm sorry we can't see those of you online, but just by a show of hands, if you were on the JET program 30 years ago, raise your hand. All right, there are a few of us, woohoo. And if you were on the JET program 20 years ago, raise your hand. There we go, okay. And how about 10 years ago? All right, so who's been back in the last 3 years? All right, well, we've got a great mix. And I love that. And regardless of when we were there, we have this shared experience. But the thing that I think is worth taking a note of is that the US-Japan relationship was in a different place in each of those decades. And it's worth taking a step back to just appreciate the distance we've traveled and where we are now. So I'm going to ask Karen to help us take a step back. And first, Karen, maybe could you let us know how many assignments you had in Japan?
Okay.
Where were you and what was going on at the time?
Sure. Yeah, well, good morning. Good morning to everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to come in person and be a part of this. I really appreciate that. More than you can know, the pandemic shut down the world for a while, but this is my first in-person meeting and trip since August of 2020. And so I'm deliriously excited to be here. And thank you all for the opportunity to come. Just to pick up on Paige's question, I started in diplomatic service in 1989, really started the application process well before then, but 1989 was when I entered the service and had an opportunity to seek an initial assignment in government. And I had no doubt where I wanted to go. Now the process is a little more complicated than wanting to be someplace, but I wanted to go to Japan. which was a little surprising to everyone who knew my background at that time, because I had come from Peace Corps volunteer service in West Africa, and I had stayed in West Africa after the 2 years of Peace Corps English teaching experience, and I had worked with the British government. I was a local hire of the British Embassy in the West African capital of Dakar, Senegal. And so looking at my background, I looked like, you know, a potential Africanist without parallel. They asked me, well, if you had your choice, not saying that you do, haha, but if you had your choice, where would you like to go? And I said, I want to go to Japan. And the interviewer kind of rocked back on his heels and looked at my background again, and then asked why. And the why of that, I think, takes us back to where it started for me. Coming back from an Africa exchange experience that was very life-changing and very enriching for me, to Washington, D.C., where I'm reading the newspapers and listening to the reports. And the thing that jumped out at me was that friction that we had with Japan. Japan is number one. Japan as gargantua, Godzilla eating up cultural properties, like, you know, all kinds of Rockefeller Center and all kinds of things about Japan. Japan is maybe the unfair trading partner. At that time, there were the sledgehammers and Honda cars by American manufacturers and laborers who felt that they weren't getting a fair shake. There was all of this about the monolith called Japan. Nothing about the people. Not a single person. I couldn't remember anything that I read or saw that explained who any of these actors were, how they lived. It was Japan as this idea of maybe not like us in ways that disadvantage us. And that really fascinated me. So I did a little reading on my own. And I thought to myself way back then that if I ever had an opportunity to travel again overseas, that Japan was where I wanted to go. Hence my response to this interviewer, now in the diplomatic service, wanting to know about this. And I explained that when he asked why. I said, because I see the effects of the interactions that we have with Japan, but I don't know anything about the Japanese people. And I don't read anything in our papers about the Japanese people. And I wonder how we can have good relations with a country in which we're so conscious of our technical cooperation, but have no understanding at all, or no information, or not very much information about the people. And that answer must have impressed him in some way, because my very first assignment in the diplomatic service was to be a trainee in Tokyo. So I got this dream assignment. It was a dream assignment. It was the first of 4 assignments. And the last one was in 2017 to 2020, when I had the appointment to serve as the Consul-General in Western Japan in our Consulate-General in Osaka. But I was also in Okinawa, had 2 assignments in Tokyo, had an assignment, almost a full assignment in Okinawa, not quite, and 2 assignments in Osaka, and had the opportunity to see the people. I mean, that was my point of curiosity, and had the opportunity over a period that spanned my 32 years in the foreign service career to be in Japan. Japan was a large part of my international, my diplomatic experience. Collectively, 16 years of the 32 years were spent in working in Japan and on Japan issues. And so I had an unusual career. That doesn't really usually happen. But somehow, you know, the little baby chick that I was coming out, the diplomatic egg, and imprinted on Japan, and learned a lot about myself. I think, Scott, you said that you learned so much about yourself. Learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about the people and the culture, and of course the politics of Japan, and really appreciated having that experience.
Well, thank you, Karen, for reminding us and reminding me of particularly those early times. I was on the second year of the JET program, 1988 to 89. And I remember those times when they were smashing Toyotas
Yes.
on Capitol Hill and talking about trade disputes. One of the reasons also that fascinated me, I'm curious because I had the privilege of meeting and working with the US's longest serving ambassador to Japan, and that was Mike Mansfield, ambassador from Montana, and he coined the phrase, the US-Japan relationship is the most important relationship in the world,
Bar none.
Yes. And so I am wondering, can you remind us of why Japan matters to the US and why that US-Japan relationship is so important?
Yeah, I think that historians decades, eons from now will look back on the US-Japan partnership and really will be able to see in hindsight what a unique relationship we've had between our two countries. We cooperate in so many ways on not only to the benefit of our respective peoples and our respective economies, but our global cooperation as well has been very significant in bringing good things around the world to countries and partners around the world. Our cooperation in space, our cooperation on climate, our cooperation, obviously in trade as two significantly large economies, global economies, has the potential to expand opportunities around the globe, not only to the benefit of our two peoples, but also to the benefit of countries that are in partnership with us. And this partnership has, that beginning, the frictions, the tensions, the war, it's an improbable relationship given the beginnings of our engagement. And yet we have today a strong bilateral relationship in security and policy, in many different, in health, in public health, and global health, that has brought lots of benefits to both our people and around the world.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for reminding us, because sometimes we think about the US-Japan relationship in terms of through the security lens and, the strategic positioning. It's so important to be sure. And there's a lot of cooperation that's happening, and there's obviously a lot of trade, but there's also that sort of that third leg of the stool, that is so important. And so I think there's a place for each of us, is what I like to say, in terms of how we support the US-Japan relationship. And before we talk a little bit more about that, but can you give us a sense of your most recent assignment? You were in Osaka.
Right.
It was pre-pandemic.
It was pre-pandemic, yes.
Lucky you.
The old days, yes.
So I guess I'm wondering, what issues were you facing as you represent the United States and Japan and in the Kansai area in particular?
Right.
What were some of the issues that you were dealing with? And, were there any highlights for you in that time?
No, I remember that. I remember that time very fondly. I had really no expectation of a fourth assignment in Japan. And I thought, nobody's crazy enough to put me back there, to send me back there again. I mean, I've had 3 swipes at this in serving in Japan. No way, but I'll put my name in anyway. And I did, and I was fully, and I didn't hear anything for a long, long time. And so I was fully prepared to go to another assignment. And that assignment was in Africa, and I was really excited about that, and it was going to be good. And I was looking forward to doing good things. And somehow the offices, well, the Africa office obviously wasn't speaking to the Asia office, and so my name came out of the hat in Asia for this assignment in Japan for the 4th time. And they called me, and I was stunned. I was, oh my God, I'm going to go to Japan. I mean, poor Africa. I just wanted, 3 assignments in Japan and the opportunity to spend another 3 years in Japan. I just wasn't going to turn that down. So I thanked the Africa Bureau very profusely for the opportunity, but let them know that I was going to take up this Consul-General assignment in Osaka. And in that time, little did we know that we were teetering towards the edge of a global crisis, but we had some of our highlights. We had a presidential visit to the G20 meeting. We worked day to day on a variety of issues. Obviously, as a US government entity, the most important thing we do is support American citizens abroad. So I did a lot of outreach. I traveled a lot in Western Japan, and I had a very choice neighborhood that I got to cover, which included Kobe and Kyoto, and included Shikoku. Shikoku went down to as far west as Hiroshima, and loved going to all of those places. Actually did make it to all of the 17 prefectures that was supposed to be covered, quote unquote, by the consulate. And everywhere I went, this business of making sure that we are cognizant of American presence, and we provide whatever support American citizens might need, was top of mind as we're engaging with Japanese counterparts. And I think almost everywhere I went, I met someone on the JET program. JET program became the thing that I thought, if I have another life, if I'm reincarnated as a human, I will come back and I will be a JET. I will be a JET. I will join the JET program. And it was very reminiscent of my Peace Corps experience. And before diplomacy, I mentioned there was Peace Corps, and the opportunity afforded to you to be in a local community and to engage with people at that level where they live and carry out their activities and bring you in to a greater or lesser extent into their world and their reality was something that I thought was unique and special to the JET program. And I really appreciated the insights that I gained from the JETs that I was able to meet with, to the point where it became kind of our thing at the consulate in Osaka that whenever we were planning a meeting for the Consul-General, yes, I was going to meet the local government officials and see business leaders, because business was a big thing that we were trying to promote between companies in Western Japan and the United States. But one of the things that was high on the list was, are there JET in this area? If there are, can we meet? Can we have dinner? Can I buy you dinner and hear a little bit about what's going on in your world from your perspective? And those insights were really amazing, really something. I don't think, I mean, you're just doing as JET, you're in your jobs, you're engaging with people, you're thinking about, your assignments, but collectively, hearing about those experiences really is an insight into the realities in these local communities that's impossible for us to really gain sitting in a consulate in Osaka or sitting in the embassy in Tokyo. We really cannot, we don't have that perspective. And so I really appreciated the opportunities that of sitting with JETs and talking about their experiences and understanding the challenges that were going on in their communities from their perspectives was really, really unbelievable.
Thank you for that. And it's interesting to me, it hadn't occurred to me that there's that unofficial role that
Right.
JETs can play. I mean, we think about, Kokusaika and Americans and others participating in the program to help internationalize Japan and
Right.
promote mutual understanding and develop these grassroots people-to-people relationships. But it occurs to me there's also this opportunity to support the US's effort to sort of have a better understanding
Right.
beyond what a briefing paper
Yes,
might
indeed.
look like. So that is interesting.
Yeah,
And it's
it
something
is.
maybe for us as alum to
Mhm,
also think about in what ways can we be a pipeline of, continuing engagement to support the JETs in Japan so that they also have that opportunity to be a
Exactly.
resource.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I just know that it was an important element of my fact finding as I traveled around Western Japan was to, if there are JETs in the area, if they can meet up, that was an opportunity to not to miss,
Right.
was to get those local perspectives and to feed that back into what we were thinking about in Osaka, but also feed that back to the folks in Tokyo.
Mhm. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think you were also maybe involved in some communications with alum because there were some incredible floods that happened in
Yes,
the
indeed.
Kansai area during
There
your
was. I
tenure?
think that was 2018.
Yeah.
Yes, 2018, because there was an earthquake in 2017.
Mhm.
Very exciting. 2018, there were the torrential rains and flooding and significant fatalities in Western Japan. I think Ehime Prefecture, I don't remember all of them that were impacted by that, but it was really significant. And we do have a mechanism, consulates and embassies do want to, be able to understand who are their citizens in that area. And sometimes people felt, Americans tend to feel like, why is my government asking about me and wanting me to sign up for stuff? But the idea was I would always tell them as I met people and JET in the local area that, if something should happen, your mom is going to call me and they're going to want to know if you're okay.
Right.
And all signing up does is let me know that I should be looking for you. My staff should be looking for you if something happens in our local area, and beyond that, believe me, I have no time to get into your life and try to understand your business. I'm frying other fish.
Yes.
And all I want to know is when I get that phone call and the inquiry comes to our mission, we know we should be looking for you. And that was a way of kind of diffusing the whole, because as Americans, we do get kind of prickly, it's like, why would the government want? What do you want? I'm okay. But really to get the word out to others that this is something that, would be very helpful in the unlikely, improbable, but still not impossible case of some disaster. we want
I-
to be
yeah.
able to reach you.
I do remember, and Bahia Simons Lane, I believe, was the executive director at the time. And it was nice knowing that you were there and we can reach out as JET alum to think about how to be supportive. And I guess that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as alum, come back eventually. I've spoken to some of you and you were on the program for 3 years and 5 years and then 2 more years after that. And some of you decided to finally come home and we're glad you did. But we've got these 19 chapters.
Right.
They're across the country. We're represented also here today by other countries, including Canada, and I know Jamaica. But I'm wondering if you can help us think about, now that we're back, in what ways, not just can we stay engaged, but we can make sure that our communities have some awareness and understanding
Right.
about Japan and that important relationship. So,
Sure.
you know, JETs, we've heard us all say, we like to tell stories
Oh, yeah.
where, you know, we reminisce about our time and we want to, you know, sort of satisfy that personal interest in the culture. But in what ways can we help Americans
Right.
understand about Japan and the importance of the relationship?
Yeah, that
from
is
where
the
we sit
challenge, isn't
now?
it? That is the challenge, because I think we've all in this room had the experience of, you know, being back and being enthusiastic about our experience and having someone ask you, well, what was it, you know, what did you like about, you know, being in X place? And you start talking, and about 5 minutes into that, you know, you see the eyes kind of glaze over, and it's like, you know, there is interest, and then, you know, there's, you know, but how far is that interest? And a 5-minute conversation is not even getting close to scratching the surface of all of the wealth of experience and knowledge that we've collectively accumulated during our time in Japan. So yeah, the question is, how do you make that relevant for Americans who may not ever go to Japan, or if they go, might do a quick trip that, you know, is a capital and maybe one of the other major cities, and then they're done and they're back. And it was like, yeah, was that Beijing, or where was that? You know, after 16 years, and I have to confess this because it still irritates me to no end, my mother still sometimes mixes up Japan and China. And I keep saying, Mom, it's Japan. I did not serve in China, you know, and, you know, but she's just kind of, you know, American. She's not, well, my mother actually did come to Japan with me and was there and enjoyed herself enormously until March 11, 2011, which found her on the 8th floor of an apartment building, going from side to side like this. After that, she wanted to get off the ride entirely.
Yes.
And about a week later, went back to the United States. And so she has not left since, but she's in California. So I tell her she didn't get away from earthquakes. But yeah, how do we make that experience real for people who may not have that opportunity, may not even know that they might be interested in Japan or the relationship that the United States has with Japan? And that's going to be, the answer to that is going to be individualized. It's going to be what you find to do that connects people to the reality of our relationship to Japan. And in some cases, it might be work that is specific to working with Japan, or educating, or writing. You may be writing. And I mean, we all can write about our experiences for our local papers, which are sometimes looking for content. They may not say it like that, but I've talked to my local people in my local community, and they are looking for content. Local organizations, I came back, and due to the unique aspects of the pandemic, did not jump into post career employment, but I did join a Rotary Club. And my Rotary Club is connected to doing good things in our local community, but also interested in doing things internationally and partnering with international partners. Well, guess who I think they ought to partner with? So, you know, we have those conversations, and I do public speaking and talk about my experiences overseas. And because half of that experience was in Japan, I talk a lot about what I did in Japan and why Japan matters to the United States. So it's finding ways of fitting that experience and knowledge. It may not be direct employment in an international relations related job that deals with Japan and US issues, but there are these opportunities to share the knowledge that you have and to share the understanding and appreciation that you have for our relationship with Japan. And I think one of the most important things is to be that wellspring of goodwill towards Japan, because it comes up in unexpected ways, and it comes up, you know, the lack of understanding about who the Japanese are, what the government is about, and our relationship to Japan comes up in odd ways. And you are, if you're in the room, you are the voice with the direct experience. I would encourage you to use that voice, to speak up. If it's, you know, something that your local politician who's out glad handing, you know, the community because he or she is canvassing for votes, and something comes up, you know, I speak up. I like to speak up, because if you're not the expert in the room, your greengrocer who's never been to Japan is not the expert. Your next door neighbor who, you know, only goes to Vegas on holiday is not the expert on Japan. You're it. You are the expert, and see yourself as such. In your experience in Japan, you are the expert of that experience, and use that, leverage that to support this important relationship.
Thank you. I love that, particularly, you know, we're titling this as, you know, alumni, you know, as ambassadors. And I feel like that's in fact who we are and what we can be even in our hometowns. One of the points that you made earlier was that this US-Japan relationship is diverse in terms of the issues that matter to both countries and the areas where we can cooperate. And, you know, I'm looking in this room and I feel like this is such a diverse group as well. It actually does look like the United States. And that's so important, as you representing the US in Japan were a representative of the US. We as JETs are also, and I believe that diversity in terms of the reasons why we're interested and the career choices that we make, but also the individual backgrounds that we bring is so critical and valuable as well. So just before we give our audience a chance to raise any questions, can you speak to not just the value of diversity? I feel like we've heard that so much, but I know in your work, you've tried to help the State Department broaden its outreach and engage more diverse people with different backgrounds to join the Foreign Service. But from where you sit, why is that important in the world of, you know, for foreign affairs, public diplomacy?
Right. Most of my career was spent in public diplomacy. I was a public diplomacy officer and engaged with publics on exchanges, engaged with lots of media relations, and really enjoyed that work. The last position that I held in the department before retiring was as the senior advisor in the East Asia Bureau on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accountability. And our concern was that as we engage with the countries in the Asia Pacific region, that we reflect in our representation the diversity of the United States. We go as U.S. government representatives, and in Asia, and like in some other places, it has its attraction for certain officers and not for others. And then they get there and it's really nice. And then there's people like me who won't go away, and they serve, multiple tours. And so they're highly bid positions and highly sought after positions. But that does not excuse the need for us to make them also look like the United States, be representative in their diversity of the diversity that's reflected in the U.S. And so it was looking at East Asia Bureau and how do we bring more diverse officers in to serve in the East Asia Bureau. And that was, it was basically assessing, where's the problem? What are the impediments? Why are women bidding at lower levels, lower percentages on East Asia jobs than their male counterparts? Why are persons of color not bidding? Why are people with, people from protected groups not seeking out these positions? And so, collecting all of that input and making recommendations was really the task that I was given in this last assignment. And there are lots of, human nature being what it is, there are lots of different reasons. Some people, it's the tyranny of distance, as the U.S. military likes to put it. Asia's far away from the United States. It's not close. Women still do a lot of take a lot of the responsibility for care for family members, this kind of thing. So you get to a point where you've got aging parents and you want to go to do a post in Asia that's 14 or 15 hours away from where your family lives. And can you do that? You've got, spouse employment issues that you're dealing with, and can you negotiate that? Can you navigate that on behalf of your spouse when there are language considerations that come into play? So it's complex and complicated. Nevertheless, there are opportunities to reach out to people in protected groups who employed in the State Department and make the case for why they should consider serving in the Asia Pacific Bureau, why they should look at some of the opportunities in countries like Japan and others to serve and to represent the United States. So that, I think, is what we're trying to do. Just a step back, not the State Department, but diversity, equity, and inclusion in general is our challenge as Americans. I can't put it in a more delicate way. We talk officially and very loudly about diversity as our strength. We are stronger because we are so diverse, and I think we mean it when we say it. And then you look around our society and we see, it seems that to the outsider looking in, it can at times look as if diversity is what's tearing us apart. So I think that it's incumbent upon us as American citizens to kind of make up our minds. Are we going to walk this talk? Are we going to walk this talk or not? And that's difficult because the society ebbs and flows. We have opportunities, then the doors seem to close, and the Supreme Court makes decisions, and it looks like, well, our acceptance and our tolerance and our openness might be experiencing some stress and some challenges. But I think that in order to really move us forward, if we really do believe that diversity is our strength, is the fact that we come from such different experiences, and yet we can bring those experiences together and work towards a common goal. If that's us, then it's incumbent upon us to kind of live that truth in ways that perhaps we need to step up the game a little bit.
Well, thank you for that. And I feel like JET alums are perfectly situated, having had these cross-cultural experiences and putting ourselves sometimes in uncomfortable positions and, bringing us a little bit of what we learned in Japan and experienced in Japan back home to our own communities. We've got 15 minutes, maybe it's 14 now, but I do want to give those of you in the audience an opportunity to either pose a question to Karen and me, or share a reaction to anything that you've heard. Please go ahead and, is that Alicia?
Hello, I guess this is a question for both of you. As JET alumni are often involved in JET recruiting, I was wondering if you had any tips for how we can bring more diverse groups into the JET program.
That's a great question. I got an idea, but you go first.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that's outstanding. If you're involved in recruiting, then you've got the opportunity to kind of expand the recruiting pool, if you will, going places that perhaps are not on the beaten path. We always go here, we always go to this institution, or we always go to that institution. Well, there are other institutions that maybe don't come right to mind, but have people that might potentially be interested. We don't know what the interest level will be until we actually go and make the case. And so, to say, oh, well, no, they're all involved in something else. There may be that one person there, thinking about Japan, reading in the newspaper and something interested them, or they went to a movie, or God help us, they saw anime, and they're interested, they're intrigued. I mean, we can't denigrate, small beginnings, because there is, for all of us, there was some hook that attracted us to the opportunity. And then we had to hear about the opportunity. And so somebody might already have a hook in them, and they're just waiting for you to connect that hook to a line and reel them in.
Thank you, Karen. And I would simply add that in our outreach, making sure that we have people who look like the people who we want to see makes all the difference. I didn't have anybody who looked like me. I knew I was interested in Japan, and thankfully my family was supported and created opportunities for me to experience Japan. But, I have to say, when I learned about you being in Japan, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this woman?
Yeah.
I have to find her, and I want to meet her. But, when people can see themselves in the promotional materials, or someone speaking enthusiastically about their time, and even if it's not going to be an easy experience, knowing that somebody else has done it and has thrived makes all the difference. So yes, going to places where you might or not ordinarily look, but also sending out people who represent the diversity that you want to have and experience.
Most definitely.
Thank you. So I think I saw Jessica and Adam. Adam, you got the
Yeah,
mic.
I've got a question from online.
Oh, thank
so
you.
Juliana Alfanito would love to know, Karen, she'd love to learn more about what drove you to join the Foreign Service in the first place, and sort of what's that story, and what was the process like to actually start on that pathway?
To join the Foreign Service?
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for the question. To join the Foreign Service, I don't know how, as an international relations and French language and literature double major, I somehow managed to miss the day when the Foreign Service came talking, but I did. I was in the Peace, I was after Peace Corps, but still in West Africa and representing British tourism. that I met a lady who came in and wanted to travel. She wanted to take a vacation in the UK. And I had all this in material and I was handing it out to her. And she said, "Hey, you're not British." And I said, "No, I'm not." And we talked a little bit, and I talked about my Peace Corps experience and being an American and being so excited about being in Africa. And she said, "We should go to lunch." And I said, "Okay, fine." We made a date. And a few days later, we were at lunch together, and she pulled out a brochure and plopped it in front of me, bam. And I looked down and it said, "Careers in the Foreign Service," in the US Foreign Service. And basically she made the pitch right there at lunch. If you enjoy learning languages, if you enjoy living overseas, if you enjoy meeting people, if you enjoy what you're doing now, your government has a job for you. And so I said, I'd take it home and look at it. And literally that conversation and her pamphlet on the Foreign Service got me started. And it was maybe 3 years after that that I was actually taking the oath of office as a newly recruited diplomat. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways. So to go back to the question on recruitment, sometimes it's just like that. It's one conversation and some information and pointing them to some information that makes the difference. And it made the difference for me.
And I know, lucky all of you, Karen's going to be on the career panel as well. But I think it's also worth mentioning that people can enter the Foreign Service in different levels of one's life. So
Right.
I've known and met people who were maybe mid-career in
Right.
another profession and brought those skills
Right.
to the Foreign Service.
In my class of newly recruited officers, we had a gentleman who had a career as an attorney in Connecticut, and he was in his 50s and was not going to have like a 32-year career like Karen, but he was able to have a career, albeit short, because Foreign Service officers are required by law to retire at age 65. I'll just put that out there. So if you're thinking about doing it,
Get going.
get going. Yeah, I think maybe 58 and a half is the cutoff age to take you in, because they want to actually get some service out of you. But yeah, 65 is when we all get the left foot of fellowship and are invited to leave. Some people leave earlier. Some people leave earlier. I had no idea that I was going to have a career in diplomatic service. I started, it sounded interesting, and I thought, well, let me give it a try. And, you know, somewhere around the 10-year mark, I thought, if I'm going to do something else, maybe I'd better start thinking about it. But I was enjoying it so much. I said, well, go on a little bit further. And so the rest is what it is. It was 32 years later, and I was finally saying goodbye.
How fortunate for us that we got you for so long. I know Jessica had her hand up, and was there another? And Shanti, maybe those two?
So I wanted to jump back to the diversity question. So we can all understand how we can help bring diversity in from the beginning through recruiting efforts, but JET's often seen as the pipeline for young people, young professionals to continue in the US-Japan space. And so when we think about creating diversity and bringing diverse perspectives into the US-Japan dialogue, how can we as alumni help guide those returning JETs and keep this diverse pool as diverse as possible and continue to help keep them in the US-Japan space?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a challenge, because people, they're back now, and they may be in their home communities, or they might have selected somewhere else to go post, their JET experience. And, job one is getting that job. You've got to have some wherewithal to live and move and encourage yourself economically, because it looks like the Americans that didn't go anywhere are so far ahead of you, they're, on their careers, and they make it seem like, we got this thing down. You're just coming in. What were you doing? Oh, you were doing what? JET, Peace Corps? What was that? And they're just gonna, speeding down the economic highway, and you're trying to catch up. Which is not the case, I will add, but it looks like it. And so you're feeling like, oh, I got to get this job and got to get going. How can I, and it in the diversity element, it makes it different because some of the folks coming from diverse backgrounds, don't perhaps have the same economic supports to spend time looking for the most interesting opportunity, or the opportunity to transfer to a place where they're not living so that they can, they don't have the economic support to do that. And I think that in order to keep them in the network, this is why your organizations are so important, because that's the outreach. If they can join a local chapter and stay in the game or stay connected to the relationships that they had and the experiences that they had, that will help them to contribute, to find ways to contribute to the extent that they can.
And we'll get Shanti's question. I might also mention that some of your chapters are offering or involved in mentorship programs, but I feel like that's so key. And if that can be replicated more broadly, there are some of us who are no longer, well, I shouldn't say no longer, I'm still actively involved in my chapter, but not everyone is after they've moved along in their career. But as alum, we always want to help and support other JETs, and we always love to talk about our careers, whatever they are. It could be in, science, technology, medicine, whatever. And so that's another opportunity to connect people so that they can mentor and know somebody else, and so they don't have to start from the beginning. Shanti, was there a question online? Adam, I just want to make sure we're being fair. So if we can have the online and then Shanti, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Sure. This is in relation to diversity on JET. And so it's one thing that we can bring in diverse JETs, but when they go there, there's an expectation to speak standard English, be a standard American. Japanese have a certain idea of what they're getting, but of course we are all so different from each other. And so how do we maintain our authenticity, especially if we're not from that white majority?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite sure what the questioner, I understand standard American, which kind of.
In English.
Standard English, okay, all right, standard English.
They did emphasize standard English.
Standard English, okay, and I'm not quite sure what that means because I hear English all over the place. I don't know if that's the expectation that people in protected groups somehow speak differently than others. I'm trying to imagine it. I think everyone that I encounter, whatever element or group they come from in the United States, speaks English. There are accents and there are colloquialisms and that perhaps distinguish other English speakers from other English speakers, but I'm not sure what standard English is. And I guess it goes to when they say expectation in Japan, I would kind of question the questioner's understanding of Japanese expectations, because the JET program recruits people from Barbados. From the English-speaking Caribbean countries. I don't know specifically where, but I know I have met JETs from a variety of locations in the program, and I've heard a variety of accents in English. So if there is an expectation of a quote unquote standard, I'm not quite sure whose standard that's supposed to be. And I would say maybe the Japanese have more flexibility than we're giving them credit for.
Or maybe they could benefit from some training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the recruitment
yeah.
is happening. I've
Yeah.
seen jets that come from the Caribbean
Yeah.
and, and they definitely have accents. But as far as English is concerned, I hear English. And so I don't think that perhaps our Japanese friends are as fixed in their expectations as maybe we think they are.
Thank you, Karen. And Shanti, you've got the last question.
Thank you.
And we'll
This is also,
Keep us on time.
yeah, I'll make it quick. The JET to US Japan career pipeline. So talking about, the alumni part once they get back. But my question is before they get back. So I feel like there's a lot of work. This is more on the government level that the US government and the Japanese government could do together for areas where the alliance needs support or could use strengthening. It could be in STEM or it could be, XYZ, but that if there's universities in Japan that have programs on this area, could JETs, apply and go there? I'm just curious, as someone who worked in Japan, do you see any areas where you think JETs could help strengthen that by staying in Japan? If there were programs
and working within Japanese institutions is what you're
yeah,
saying.
or even if there were internships or kind of just continuing the US Japan work past JET in areas that the US and Japanese government know we need further support for the alliance.
I think that's an interesting question, and perhaps the conversations need to occur between the two governments in terms of what might be useful and helpful, and then creating mechanisms so that those kind of internships could happen. Not so much that it would be the governments that would create programs, because what you're talking about are kind of private sector opportunities. And if those exist, the companies would have a lot of say so in, who comes in and what kind of, what they can intake and cope with. But I think, speaking very broadly, from my experience, wherever JETs are, they bring value to what's going on in their local communities in which they're participating. So that certainly would be an opportunity for more discussion and more thought.
Thank you, Karen. I think that's a great place to end. And thank you for your service.
Not at all.
And
Thank you for
for
yours.
this time.
Thank you both, Karen and Paige, for sharing your wonderful experiences and perspectives with us today. So we will now take a short break. We would like to, we'll say restart at 10:45 here. And please help yourselves to the refreshments that are in the atrium. So that's as you exit the doors here to the left. There's a lot of muffins and coffee left over, so please enjoy that. Also, if you go out the doors and straight across the entranceway, there is the bathroom if you need that. And we will see you back here in about 10 minutes. Yes, and we'll add some more chairs. We will have one, and then we'll have share together too.
It would be awesome.